Bill Spillane received a degree in economics from Purdue University and studied law at Gonzaga University, and his multifaceted career includes 32 years as a combat-ready fighter pilot in the U.S. Air Force and Air National Guard, including numerous medals for fighting in Vietnam. He retired as a full colonel. He devotes his time, energy, and money now to pushing for and enacting the FairTax, a national retail sales tax which will replace, he hopes, the income tax, the payroll tax, and other taxes, along with a rebate so that poor people will not be taxed. Here's Bill Spillane. Bill, welcome back.
George, you're terrific. Thanks.
Well,
it's a pleasure to be back with you, and you're doing your listeners a great service, truly, but I'm not sure I can compete with your previous guests, except that we're talking about people's money and their liberty. Does that compete? What do you think?
well, and let me tell you, Bill, we've been talking about this now with you for a couple of years now that
Right.
we've jumped on board. Nothing done yet. When are we going to get something done on the FairTax?
Well, it's up to your listeners because you and I can't do it. It takes a lot of people to appeal to your congresspeople and whack them upside the head and tell them that you've got to have it, and then they'll be leaders. They'll say, I've always been for it. That's the way it works, George. Look at the Tea Party people. They're getting people's attention because they're out there in droves, and that's what we have to do. You just have to appeal to the people's self-interest and say, if you don't do it, it's not going to happen. So we'll get something done when the people start calling their congresspeople and insisting that we have this because it's in their interest in terms of their financial future and their liberty. And so if they don't do it, it won't happen.
What's the FairTax, Bill?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. The FairTax is a replacement for the present income tax. Now, that sounds simple enough, but the ramifications are enormous, George, just enormous. But let's see what it gets rid of. It gets rid of the personal and the corporate income tax, first of all. Then it gets rid of the personal and business payroll tax. That's FICA, Social Security, Medicare taxes. They get funded. Don't get ahead of us now. They all get funded, but we're going to get rid of the way that we pay them right now. We're going to get rid of the tax on dividends and capital gains. We'll get rid of the death tax, the gift tax, and the alternative minimum tax. And on top of that, little whipped cream, we're going to have a prebate, which we'll explain later. But we replace it with a national sales tax at the cash register of 23% inclusive, and I'll explain inclusive, exclusive.
Now, some people are going, oh, my God, 23%.
No, that's nothing compared to what they're paying now. At the minimum, folks are in a 15% tax bracket, and by the way, that 15% isn't what they think it is. It's really 18%.
And they'll have the option to buy the goods if they want to.
That's right. And then the payroll tax is on top of that. So we're talking about 24, 25%, even in a 15% tax bracket. And there's all kinds of embedded taxes when they buy an American-made good or service. It just goes on and on. So this is a huge improvement. It has direct benefits and it has indirect benefits to every American. It's just a fabulous thing. The direct benefits are you'll have more cash in your pocket by far. And the indirect benefits is you'll have more jobs in the United States, so your future and your children's future is more blessed. And it just goes on and on, George. It's a fabulous thing.
And individuals will not have to file an income tax anymore because
correct.
It would be gone. Right?
That's right. April 15th, just another spring day. Isn't that terrific? You don't have to worry about the IRS coming after you and all that sort of thing and all the efforts that you have to go through to comply with the tax code. And I'll tell you what it replaces, besides just what I enumerated already. It's pretty staggering because most people don't know this, and I didn't know all of it until I got involved in this problem. It gets rid of the compliance costs. Oh, my God, what's compliance costs? Well, first of all, we have to understand, George, that there's no free lunch. You've heard that before.
Yeah.
And every time a business has a cost, it has to recover. In other words, get that cost from someplace. And it usually gets the cost from the customer. It passes on those costs to the customer. The only other alternatives are lower wages for the employees or lower returns, that is, investment profits, for the owners. All of those have adverse impacts, each one of them, but mostly it's to get rid of the costs that pass on to the customers. So what's compliance? It's the cost of producing the tax code in the first place. Not a dollar goes to the IRS or the Treasury or whatever. It's the tax people that you have to promote to finish your taxes. It's that building over there that General Motors has loaded with tax people just to comply with the tax code. It's all those costs necessary just to comply with the tax code. That's $300 to $500 billion a year. That's not once, that's every year. And that's only the beginning. Then we
well, let me ask you this. One of the biggest investments for Americans happens to be their home.
Right.
And they've been writing off their interest on their income tax.
Right.
Will they lose that under the FairTax Act?
Well, the short answer is yes, but let me ask you this. What is a deduction? A deduction is an elimination of taxes paid on money that you spent doing something else, paying interest, right?
Right.
How about if 100% of your paycheck is deductible? Would that be better? Your mortgage is probably, 10 to 30 or 40% of your income, and that's nice. But how about if 100% of your income is deductible? And that's what the FairTax does. It just eliminates the whole idea of deductibility because you don't pay any income taxes. With no income taxes, the concept of deductibility is irrelevant. It goes away.
If you bought a house for $200,000,
yep,
and the sales tax would be 23%, would you pay $46,000 more for that house?
No. Is it a new house or an old house? This tax is only on new houses. We're not taxing anything that's used. We're only taxing new at retail products. Now, what we haven't gotten into, George, is the concept of embedded taxes, because. And we're leaping ahead a little bit here, but we're talking about your house, and I'm going to come back to that, but make it clear. Embedded taxes are the taxes that businesses pay in order to be in business. They have to pay corporate income taxes, and they have to pay payroll taxes on all their employees. Now, we've spent over $20 million in research and hired the best people, the best minds across the United States to tell us all these specifics about what's going on in our economy. And Dale Jorgensen of Harvard University, who's Mr. Tax, came up with a 22% embedded taxes in all American-made products and services. That's huge. So that new house has 22% roughly of taxes embedded in it, only as a result of our income tax code. We're going to rip that out. So the new house goes down in price by roughly 20% or so, and then we add the fair tax on top of it, and the price won't change much. I think it'll go up a little bit, maybe 5%, but you're going to have your whole paycheck in your pocket. You're going to have a lot more money in your pocket, and we haven't even begun to talk about all the reasons you're going to have more money in your pocket.
Okay, but if you buy a foreign car, you're still going to pay that sales tax on that, right?
Yes, you will. Yes, you will, but you won't pay it on the Well, you're going to pay it on every car that you buy in the United States, every car. But the American car will go down in price about 20%. That's pretty huge. So what's going to do? What will happen there? American manufacturing will come back to the United States. All manufacturing. We're going to create a new Ireland. Now, you probably heard over a span of years that Ireland did an amazing thing a few years back. Now, all of Europe is in a mess, but a few years back, Ireland was just a typical European country with high taxes and so forth. And they decided that they would drop the income tax on businesses to 12%. Oh, my gosh. The rest of the continent was about 30%. Well, so what? Well, I'll tell you so what. Here's a country that was poor for 1,000 years, and suddenly overnight they're rich. Why? Because all the corporations flooded into Ireland from all over the world. Intel went there, Microsoft went there, and they hired all the local folks, and Ireland got rich, first time in 1,000 years. And it's only because they dropped their corporate income tax rates, and people got the message. The word got out, and boom, they're over there. Same thing would happen in the United States, only there's no point in having a corporate income tax. Because the corporation might write the check, but it isn't they that picks up the impact of that cost. It's the customer or the employee or the owner, and all those are bad. And if you say, sock it to the owner, all right, sock it to the owner, fine. Then he'll move somewhere else. He'll take his business somewhere else. How's that? How do you like that? He'll take the jobs with him. That's what we've been doing. Our tax code has been exporting jobs by the baleful. So we have to stop that, George, and the FairTax does that.
What about rebates for the poor, the low income?
Well, the prebate, we call it a prebate because it's a rebate in advance, and it's not welfare. Some of our people who pick on us say, oh, my God, that's welfare. No, it isn't. It's a return of the taxes that you'd pay up to the poverty level, and you have to apply for it. So maybe Bill Gates wouldn't bother because it's chicken feed to him and Warren Buffett and so forth. They could, but only legal resident would apply for the prebate, and they would get the taxes they would pay if they paid at the cash register up to the poverty level.